My name is Claire Morgan, and I've always been the easy one to rely on. Not because I was strong. Not because I wanted to be. But because no one ever asked if I could stop. That realization didn't come during an argument or a dramatic family fight. It came on an ordinary Wednesday morning, sitting at the same kitchen table I'd been sitting at since I was 17, staring at a cracked mug I'd replaced twice already. My mother, Linda, stood by the stove, stirring oatmeal she never ate herself. My father, Robert, flipped through his phone with the concentration of a man avoiding eye contact. My younger brother, Evan, leaned back in his chair, energized, glowing in a way I hadn't seen before. "We got it," Evan said, grinning. "The job offer. Denver." "That's great," I said. And it was. I meant it. Linda turned, beaming. "They're covering part of the relocation, but your father and I are helping with the rest. Deposit, truck, furniture. He needs a clean start." She said it like it was a mission. Like something sacred. I nodded. "When do you leave?" 2 weeks, Evan said. The room felt smaller somehow. Like the walls leaned in just a little. I hesitated before speaking again. "That's funny. I was going to tell you, I found an apartment closer to work." Linda blinked. "Oh. It's not fancy," I added quickly, out of habit. "But it's quiet. I'll be moving next month." Silence followed. Robert cleared his throat. "We can't help twice, Claire." There it was. Linda rushed to soften it. "You understand, honey. Evan's at a turning point. You're already established." Established. That word again. The one that meant dependable. Replaceable. Invisible. "I'll manage," I said, smiling automatically. And just like that, the conversation moved on. To packing lists. To neighborhoods in Denver. To how proud they were. No one asked how I'd afford the move. No one remembered I'd paid the electric bill that morning. That night, I lay awake listening to the house breathe. Pipes creaking. The hum of appliances I'd bought. The washer spinning softly downstairs, the one I'd replaced after the old one flooded the laundry room and Mom cried like the world was ending. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. I sat up and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a thick folder I'd kept since my early 20s. Not sentimental things. Not letters. Documents. Receipts. Bank statements. Loan confirmations. Emails. I hadn't kept them for revenge. I'd kept them because I worked in operations. Because details mattered. Because proof mattered. I spread everything across the bed. The couch. The refrigerator. The washer and dryer. Utilities. Property taxes during Dad's temporary layoff. I stopped counting halfway through and laughed softly to myself. Not because it was funny, but because it finally had a shape. This wasn't generosity. This was dependency. And I had been feeding it for years. The next morning, I didn't say anything. I made coffee. I packed my lunch. I went to work. On my break, I made 3 calls. The first was to a short-term housing company my firm used for executives. Furnished. Immediate availability. No emotional attachment. The second was to a moving company. The third was to a real estate attorney. I didn't explain everything. I didn't need to. All I asked was one question. What happens if my name is still on a refinance? There was a pause on the line. Then you're not just a resident, the attorney said. You're legally involved. That night, I checked the documents again. There it was. 5 years ago. A refinance done quietly when my parents' credit dipped. My name. My signature. Never removed. I sat back in my chair, heart steady. They hadn't just relied on me. They had tied themselves to me. Saturday came fast. The driveway buzzed with activity as Evan loaded his car. Linda fluttered around him, handing over snacks and reminders. Robert stood back, pretending not to notice me watching from the porch. "You'll be okay, right?" Linda asked, finally turning to me. I nodded. "Of course." She hugged me tightly. "You always understand." The words wrapped around me like chains. As Evan drove away, the house fell quiet. Too quiet. I walked through it slowly. Not as a daughter. As an auditor. Every object told a story. And most of them were written in my handwriting. I stopped in the living room, staring at the couch. "I'm done," I whispered. Not in anger. In certainty. They thought I was staying behind to hold things together. They had no idea. I was about to take everything apart. The house was quiet when the movers arrived. Not the usual chaos of a Saturday morning, no phone calls, no neighbors peeking, no brother chattering about his new adventure. Just the faint hum of the street, the old trees swaying in rhythm with the early autumn breeze. I greeted the crew at the front door. "Everything with my name on it," I said simply. My voice was calm, deliberate, a contrast to the storm of planning swirling in my head. They nodded. "Got it," the crew chief said, clipboard in hand. He didn't need to ask questions. Professionals deal in evidence, not family drama. We started with the living room. The couch, the $1,400 sectional I'd insisted on after the old one collapsed, was wrapped carefully in thick blankets. The television, which Dad had claimed was too expensive, was dismantled and boxed with the care of a museum artifact. Every appliance, every piece of furniture I'd purchased in the last 7 years was tagged, logged, and removed systematically. Walking through the kitchen, I paused at the stand mixer. Twice my mother had used it. Twice. $320. The counter felt emptier without it. But it was mine. All mine. I placed it gently into a moving box, noting its serial number against my folder of receipts. By noon, the house felt alien. Bare floors stretched out in unfamiliar angles. The walls seemed wider, taller. Silence pressed against the corners, the kind of silence that demanded introspection. I sat on the staircase for a moment, coffee in hand, staring at what used to be the family home. They didn't call. They didn't check. And they wouldn't know. Not yet. After the movers left for a short break, I went to my office. My phone buzzed incessantly. Mom. Dad. Evan. I let it ring. Again. Then I checked my email. There it was. The lease confirmation for the short-term apartment. Fully furnished. Ocean view. Utilities included. Ready for move-in in 48 hours. My heart remained steady. I wasn't nervous. I was in control. Later that afternoon, my father finally called. His voice was cautious. "Claire, are you serious about taking all of it?" "Yes," I said, turning the pages of my folder. "I kept records for a reason." Silence. Then, almost a whisper, "You're being extreme." I smiled faintly. "I'm being precise." Evening came, and I walked through each room one last time. I traced my hand along the dining table I had saved for months to buy. My fingers lingered on the wood. I remembered the proud delivery day, the way the sunlight hit the polished surface, how I had imagined dinners with the whole family enjoying it. It wasn't sentimental anymore. It was evidence. Evidence of being used. Evidence of always being the responsible one while others coasted. At 8 a.m. the next day, the movers returned. Neighbors were gone, doors closed, windows shuttered. I followed each box and piece of furniture outside. The truck groaned under the weight of what had taken years to accumulate. Halfway through, Evan called. "Claire, seriously, what are you doing? I didn't answer. He didn't know. He had no idea. I didn't need to explain. By noon, everything I had bought, maintained, and cared for over the last 7 years was gone. Every receipt, every bank transfer, every piece of furniture, every appliance, I had it documented, logged, accounted for. Nothing was left to chance. Except for the things they had brought before me. Old recliners, donated appliances, useless decorations. I left those behind. They weren't mine. I wasn't cruel. I was meticulous. When the last box was loaded, I stepped into the empty kitchen. It was hollow now. A void. My parents had always treated it like I would fix everything without complaint. They would come back to a silent house and understand, for the first time, what their assumptions had cost them. That evening, I signed the lease for the new apartment. My short-term housing was confirmed. Utilities switched. Mail forwarded. Everything ready. As I closed the laptop, a new email arrived, from Mom. Claire, we just want to understand. Please call us. I didn't. Not that night. Not the next morning. Instead, I called my attorney. We're moving forward, I said. I want my name removed from the mortgage immediately. I want repayment or sale. No exceptions. The attorney hesitated. Are you sure? This could escalate quickly. I'm sure, I said, calm as the ocean view I was about to have. No emotion. Just logistics. Later that night, I walked through the empty house one last time. I stopped at the window, watching the streetlights flicker across the driveway. Everything I had done was deliberate. Every action had been measured. Every step accounted for. I wasn't taking revenge for revenge's sake. I wasn't punishing. I was reclaiming. And there it was, the first twist. My father's old filing cabinet. Locked. He'd never let me near it. But tonight, curiosity and habit combined. I pried it open. Inside, invoices. Credit statements. Evidence of his recent financial hardship, loans, and expenses. But the numbers didn't add up. Someone had been funneling money from accounts I had access to, my accounts, without acknowledgement. I leaned back, letting the realization sink in. My control had been underestimated. My patience had been exploited. And now, for the first time, I held all the cards. The movers finished loading at 9:30 p.m. I watched as the truck rolled away with my history, my labor, my investments. And then I did something unexpected. I walked upstairs to the bedroom Evan used as a guest space when home. I opened the closet. I left it empty. No trace of my things. No sign I had ever been there. It was symbolic. Silent. Loud. Calculated. The night stretched. Outside, the world continued unaware. Inside, I plotted the next step, a legal claim to remove my name from the mortgage and a formal request for reimbursement. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to confront. I just needed facts, evidence, and execution. Because in my world, precision always beats emotion. That night, I slept for the first time in years feeling free. The first night in my new apartment, the ocean breeze brushed against the balcony, carrying a strange sense of possibility. The city lights shimmered like distant promises, and for the first time in years, I felt untethered. I unpacked slowly, deliberately. My clothes, laptop, and personal items went into drawers I didn't have to share. Every object I touched belonged to me, every decision mine alone. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated. Claire, a quiet voice said. Not Mom, not Dad. It was Evan. I froze. My heart shouldn't have jumped, but it did. I found something, he stammered. In the files at home. I think you were right. I leaned back in my chair. What do you mean? There's been money missing, he admitted. Not just what you covered. More. Large sums. Dad moved it around. I didn't respond immediately. I had known for years, subconsciously, that there were discrepancies. But hearing it from Evan, unfiltered, changed the scale. Where? I asked finally. Evan hesitated. In the old safety deposit box. In the bank. Mom and Dad said it was investments. But. I looked. Some of it's under your name, some. I don't know. I can send you photos. I told him to. Within 15 minutes, my inbox filled. Statements. Account transfers. Hidden mortgages. Loans taken out in my name without consent. I stared at the screen. $42,000. Missing. Not accounted for. And the kicker, Evan had evidence that part of it was used to fund his relocation. My stomach twisted. Betrayal had a taste, salty, metallic, and unforgettable. It wasn't just exploitation. It was systematic. The next day, I called my attorney. Her voice was calm, measured. This changes everything, she said. We need to act quickly. You can file a temporary injunction on the accounts and prevent further access. I didn't need time to think. Logistics had trained me for this. Facts first, emotion later. Evidence compiled. Receipts, statements, bank records, emails. Everything meticulously saved. While the legal process began, I set a new plan in motion. The apartment needed a professional touch. I hired movers again, not to take items this time, but to rearrange, secure, and document my new territory. Every box, every cabinet, every drawer catalogued. I slept poorly that night. But when I woke, I felt a strange calm. This wasn't anger. Rage was messy. Confusion was inefficient. What I had now was clarity. 3 days later, Evan called again. His voice trembling. Claire. Mom found the statements. She called Dad. They're panicking. They don't know what to do. A small part of me softened, briefly. I had once been protective. But that Claire no longer existed. She had been replaced by someone precise, methodical, unstoppable. They'll reach out? I asked. Already tried. Mom left voicemails. Dad sent texts. Evan blocked them from my email notifications. They're desperate. I smiled faintly. Desperation was a language I understood. That evening, there was a knock at the door. Not the movers. Not a delivery. A man in a sharp suit, leather briefcase in hand. Claire Morgan, he asked, voice clipped. I'm from your bank. There have been suspicious transactions flagged in your accounts. I was asked to contact you immediately. I invited him in, calm. My apartment was organized, clean, evidence visible. Every receipt, every document, on my desk, ready. He examined the statements. His eyebrows rose. Someone's been moving large amounts out of your name, he said, disbelief lacing his tone. This is extensive. Yes, I said softly. And I have records. We spent 2 hours reconciling. Transfers, loans, and accounts hidden under my name but controlled by my parents. By the end, I had full documentation ready for legal submission. It was worse than I imagined. Not just misuse of funds, manipulation, lying, emotional exploitation, a betrayal so deep it had taken years to surface. I realized then the scale of what I had done by leaving. Not only had I removed my physical and financial presence from their household, I had created leverage. Control I had never had before. I called Evan. Are you ready? I asked. Yes, he said. I don't want to be part of this, but I want the truth out there. Then we move forward, I said. The next day, I filed the necessary documents. Temporary freeze on all accounts in my name, formal request for repayment, documentation of unauthorized loans. It was a surgical strike. Precise. Calculated. Irrevocable. That evening, I went for a walk along the water. The city lights reflected on the waves, fragmented like pieces of my old life. I let myself feel something unfamiliar, power. Not revenge. Not satisfaction. But control. My parents had treated me like a utility for years, my patience, my money, my labor. Now, for the first time, the roles were reversed. And yet, another twist awaited. I received an email from my mother's account, though Evan confirmed she hadn't sent it herself. Someone had hacked into her email. The subject line, "Claire, you don't understand what you're doing." I opened it cautiously. Inside, lines typed with calculated emotion, threats of public exposure, guilt manipulation, promises of reconciliation if I return some funds voluntarily. I sat down, heart steady. They had underestimated me. Always. And now, their desperation had made them reckless. I drafted a response. Not emotional. Not angry. Precise. Every word documented. Every tone neutral. I sent it knowing it would be saved, traceable, undeniable. By the time I went to bed, I knew two things. The legal battle was inevitable. I had already won the internal war. Sleep finally came, deep and unbroken. The betrayal had been exposed. The truth was out. The evidence undeniable. And I had reclaimed the first piece of my life, freedom. Tomorrow, the next move would reveal more. More secrets. More lies. And more control. The morning sunlight streamed through the apartment windows, spilling across the ocean view balcony and the neatly arranged furniture. Everything I owned, everything I had worked for, was finally mine. My phone buzzed. Multiple missed calls. Mom. Dad. Evan. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I called my attorney. Prepare for them to come at us, I said. Calm. Measured. Controlled. I want every conversation documented, every transaction frozen, everything in writing. No surprises. By mid-afternoon, the first confrontation arrived. My parents stood outside the apartment door, their faces tight with desperation. They were carefully rehearsed. Mom's eyes were wide, pleading. Dad's jaw was rigid. They knocked. I didn't open the door. I called Evan. Are you here? Yes, he whispered. They've come. Mom looks, panicked. I walked to the door. I unlocked it, letting them in on my terms. The apartment was pristine, organized, everything deliberate. Every piece of furniture, every personal item, carefully displayed. They froze. Claire, Mom began, voice trembling, we didn't realize. I raised a hand. Save it. Calm, precise. Not a trace of the old obedient Claire. You didn't care to notice before. Why start now? Dad's face flushed. We didn't want to burden you. We thought you'd understand. Understand what? I asked, voice steady, eyes cold. That I funded your lives for 7 years. That I covered your bills, bought your appliances, saved you from the consequences of your choices. You think that's acceptable? Mom looked away. Dad's hands clenched at his sides. They were unprepared for confrontation, for truth laid bare. I gestured to the documents on the dining table. Receipts, bank statements, spreadsheets, all evidence of every penny, every favor, every silent sacrifice. Everything, I said. Documented. You'll need more than apologies. You'll need restitution. And it starts now. Mom's voice cracked. Claire, we never realized. You realized perfectly well, I cut in. You just relied on me to do the math, to pay the price, to manage your lives. That ends today. Dad's face hardened. You're being extreme. I smiled faintly. I'm being precise. Evan stepped forward, nervous. Mom, Dad, she's right. This isn't just about the money. It's about everything we've ignored, all the ways you've treated Claire as a convenience rather than a person. Mom's tears flowed freely now, but it felt theatrical, rehearsed. She's our daughter, she said, voice wavering. We wanted what was best for her. I stopped her. No. You wanted what was best for yourselves, while I kept the balance. I'm done keeping it for you. Then came the final twist. A notification pinged on my laptop, my bank had completed an alert verification. A new transfer. I opened it. $18,000. Returned. Not just frozen, but returned, traced to their accounts. I leaned back, a calm satisfaction settling over me. The legal system had enforced what I had long known, my labor, my money, my life, deserved acknowledgement. Mom and Dad sat in stunned silence. Their eyes darted from the documents to me, searching for anger or mercy. But all they found was clarity. You can leave now, I said, voice calm but final. I've reclaimed what is mine. I will not be manipulated, guilt-tripped, or used again. They didn't argue. Not a word. Their shock left them mute, powerless. Evan looked at me, gratitude mixed with awe. Claire. I can't believe you did this. I smiled softly. You'll understand one day. Control isn't about power over others. It's about reclaiming what's yours. They left. Quietly. Their car disappeared down the street. And I was alone. Finally, completely alone. I walked through the apartment, each step deliberate. The furniture I had purchased, the appliances I loved, the documents, my laptop, all of it reminded me that this time, it was mine. My labor, my patience, my decisions, fully intact. That night, I sat on the balcony. The city lights shimmered against the dark water, each reflection a tiny testament to precision, control, and quiet victory. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom, "We're sorry, Claire. We understand now." I didn't respond. Words weren't necessary. The evidence, the law, and my actions spoke louder than anything I could write. And then, the unexpected final revelation, Evan called. Claire. I found Mom's journal. She admitted everything, how she manipulated, how she hid the accounts. She thought if she wrote it down, it would make her feel better, but she never intended for anyone else to see it. I felt a chill, not from fear, but from the irony. They had documented their deceit, leaving a trail even they couldn't control. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to breathe deeply. The ocean breeze filled my lungs. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and new beginnings. I was free. Independent. Untethered. I knew one thing for certain, I would never let anyone assume my patience or competence equaled compliance again. The phone buzzed one last time. Evan, dinner tomorrow. Just us. I smiled, packing away the last box of personal items. Yes, I replied. Just us. The night deepened, and with it, a sense of resolution. Not revenge. Not anger. Just clarity. I looked out over the water, city lights reflecting endless possibilities. My life, my rules, my future, finally, completely mine.